Hey, and welcome to another episode of Greg Goes All In. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, you filthy degenerates. Today we're going to go over some interesting hands that I played of $10 no limit on global poker. We make the biggest profit that we have on Greg Goes All In, so I'm very excited to share that with you. But before we get into that, folks, this is the third episode of Greg Goes All In. You've got to know me a little bit better, I've got to know you a little bit better, so I think it's about time that I tell you guys something. I know that I'm not that good at poker. Folks, I've only been playing and studying for a little less than a year, so I know that I've got a lot of ways to grow, I've got a lot more to learn, and I thank you all for being a part of that process. So please, 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 if you ever see a hand that I play that makes you go, please leave your constructive criticism in the YouTube comments below. Helps a lot, I appreciate it, I thank you in advance for it, and hopefully I'll learn something. Alright folks, let's get right into it. Here we go. We start the session out with 10-9 offsuit. I bought the button, so I already have 10 cents invested. Not the greatest hand, but I opened to 40 cents, hoping to either take down the pot pre-flop or end up heads up with one of the blinds and steal the pot later on the later street. Instead, we end up with the button calling and us going heads up, out of position. So much fun. Flop comes, not bad, 10-8-3 rainbow. I've got top pair, bad kicker. But I think I'm probably good on such a dry flop, and with a mediocre kicker, I bet small, betting a little less than half the pot. The button calls, and the turn is the king of diamonds, bringing in the full rainbow. I check to evaluate what the button does, and she checks back. The river is the 5 of spades. I'm now thinking by her calling the flop and checking the turn, she at best has some 10x hand. I think that I can get some thin value here from some 10x hand with a worse kicker, or maybe even an 8x hand, maybe pocket 9. So I lead out for about a third of the pot. She calls, we get paid off, starting out the session with a decent pot. Next, we've got ace-jack offsuit on the big blind. Under the gun +2 opens 30 cents. Middle position calls. It folds to me, and I'm a bit torn as to whether or not to 3-bet or just flat. But I think 3-betting ace-jack offsuit is overplaying my hand a little bit, and playing it in a multi-way 3-bet pot out of position is not going to be fun. So I decide to just flat, and the flop's pretty good. It's ace-king 5-2 hearts. I check to the pre-flop aggressor, who leads out for a little less than half the pot. I think now that with that sizing, he's got a draw or at best a king X hand. Any ace would bet bigger to protect their hand, or at least should, which is what I need to do. So I put in the check raise to $1.20 and he calls. Turn is the 6 of clubs, bringing in the second flush draw. I bet again to protect my hand, betting a little more than half the pot, and he calls once more. The river is the 3 of spades, which is pretty much a brick. The draws all miss, so the only value I can get now is from any king X or ace X with a worse kicker. I think that maybe I should just check to induce a bluff from a misdraw, but over time I find that that strategy doesn't often work and my value hand just ends up getting checked through. So it's better to assume that he has a hand that he can call a value bet with. So I size up to a little more than half the pot, betting 4 into 7. He calls and we're good. Happy to get 3 sheets of value from our hand. Next hand, we're put in a really interesting position. We've got 9-10 suit on the big blind once again, and under the gun +2 opens to 30 cents. The button calls, and I defend my big blind. Through ways to flop, which comes 2-4-2, 2 spades. We have a flush draw and 2 overs. I check to the pre-flop aggressor, and he bets 55 cents, and nothing to do here but just call. Turn is the 8 of spades, completing our flush. Hooray! I check back to the pre-flop aggressor, hoping for a bet, but unfortunately, he checks back. The river brings an awful card. It's the 2 of hearts, so now there are 3 2s on the board, so any pair makes a full house. I check with my flush, hoping to just get the showdown, and he bets 3/4 of the pot. What an awful situation to be in when your flush becomes basically a bluff catcher. So I go into the tank. So I'm thinking that my opponent, as the pre-flop aggressor from under the gun +2, I'm thinking his range doesn't really connect with the board very well. You know, so I don't think he would have a 4 or an 8 in his range. I also have unrepped the strength of my hand up to now, checking to him on all 3 streets. Hands he may bet for value would be hands maybe like pocket 9s and up, but again, I don't believe he has an overpair because he would have, or at least should have, bet bigger on the flop with a flush draw on the board. And even if this was for value, on such a scary connected board, you'd think he would bet smaller. Lastly, I had seen him bluff the river a few hands ago, so I level myself into call, and amazingly, our flush is good. He made a big bluff with his jack high. Our read was right. And we actually make the profitable play by checking to him on all 3 streets, allowing him to bluff at us. And we take a nice pot because I'm a call station. Next up, we pick up some queens.
Yes, queen, yes, queen, yes, queen! Yeah!
We open to 40 cents and the button calls, and we go to the flop heads up, which is ace 10 7 2 spades. Definitely I don't like that ace bet. We've got a c-bet. We assume we have the best hand and bet 2/3 of the pot to protect our hand from the flush. Turn is the 10 of spades, completing the flush draw and pairing the board. I check, and he bets half pot. This is a pretty easy fold for me, I think, as I think I'm losing to every hand that calls the flop. The flush draw gets there, any 10x hand now has trips, and an ace x hand already beats me. And yes, you could argue, yeah, there's some 7x hands that might have called in a flop or some smaller pocket pairs, but even still, those hands are just going to check back and try to get a showdown. So I kiss the ladies goodbye, I thank them for a wonderful time, and then I throw them away. All right, next hand, I've got 10 jack suited on the hijack, under the gun opens 30, under the gun +2 calls, middle position calls, and I call, and everybody else folds. So we go 4 ways to the flop, which comes 8, king 9, 2 diamonds. We have an open-ended straight draw. Under the gun continues the aggression and bets 50 cents. The middle position calls. I have a great price to chase my straight, 50 cents to win $2.35, almost 5 to 1. So I call. We drill a queen on the turn, giving us the straight, but the flush draw does get there, and up against 2 opponents, it's likely someone's got one. Kinda crazy Santa Claus leads out big, betting a little more than 2/3 of the pot, and Grok calls. I don't love the situation I'm in, but I've got the straight, so I can't quite fold just yet. I call and evaluate a river, which is a jack. And this is a crazy wet board. The flush draw makes it. Any 10 makes a straight. Ace 10 makes a better straight. So when Kinda Crazy and Grok check to me, I'm very happy to just check it back. And we are good. Kinda Crazy Santa Claus had tripped kings and made the mistake of betting too small on the flop, allowing me to call and suck out on the turn. And Grok rivered 2 pair. After this hand, I wondered if perhaps I could have gotten more value, seeing as I was up against 2 monster hands. I'm not too sure. Let me know what you think. Alright, next up I've got 6-4 offsuit on the button. It folds to me and I open to 40 cents with this garbage hand, trying to isolate the big blind or steal the pot. Great, blinds both called, but the flop is gorgeous. It's ace 4-4 rainbow. We've got trips. I love playing garbage hands and then getting rewarded for it. It checks to me and I bet 1/3 of the pot, trying to get a call from an ace or some middling pocket pair on this dry flop. And we've got one customer, thank you Radhoff. Turn is an 8 of spades, bringing in the full rainbow. Don't have to worry about a backdoor flush coming in. Checks again to me and I just go ahead and bet pot. Any ace has to call, and any other middling pair probably can't withstand another street of betting on the river, so might as well get the money in now. She calls again, and at this point, I definitely put her on an ace. The river is an inconsequential 2 of hearts. She checks to me one more time, and since I'm pretty sure that she has an ace, I decide to exploit the fact that low stakes players find it very hard to fold top pair. So I overbet the pot and put her all in. She snap calls, we win, we never see that ace in her hand, and we stack her. Alright, next hand. I'm very embarrassed to show you this hand, but we gotta keep it real, right? I open a little loosey-goosey from under the gun +2 with ace 4 of clubs to 25 cents, and the small blind calls. Flop is 3, 10, 4 rainbow. We've got middle pair and over and some backdoor draws. I bet 1/3 of the pot just hoping to take this down, but the small blind calls. The turn is the 5 of hearts and action checks through. River is the 6 of diamonds, bringing 4 to the straight. Now the small blind leads out for 80 cents into $1. I think with the board being so scary, I could probably bluff her off her hand, so I raise her to $2. She calls with the rivered straight with pocket 7s. Looking back on this hand, I think this was such a boneheaded move. I should know better that when low stakes players bet big on scary boards, it's probably because they really like their hand. Also, I think this play is indicative of one of my leaks, which is that when I run well and my stack gets big, I often start to play overly aggressive and bluff at too high of a frequency. So whoops, embarrassed about this hand, but there it is. Last hand we'll go over. Folks, you shouldn't be flying right now. I shouldn't be flying right now. But I've just got first class tickets on American Airlines, baby! Under the gun, min opens to 20 cents. That's not enough to fly with us, miss. Price of admission to destination flop is 85 cents. Thank you very much. The middle position player to my left cold calls my 3-bet and everybody else folds. We go heads up to the flop, which is queen high. Wonderful. Hoping he has a queen, I bet $1.45 for value and equity protection from the flush draw, and he calls. The turn is the ace of diamonds, which now gives us trips but brings in the flush. So I bet small so that if I get re-raised, it won't be for too much, so I'll be able to call and maybe suck out on the river with the board pairing if he does indeed have a flush. Instead, he calls again. River is the 9 of hearts, and again, I decide to bet small with the plans of bet folding. I bet 1/3 of the pot. But I think here I make the mistake of not realizing how short stacked he already was. If he's calling this bet, he's pretty much pot committed. So if he's calling, he's shoving. And I don't think I can actually call a shove. But doesn't matter, he folds and we get 2 streets of value from our aces. So that wraps up all the interesting hands from our session. We played for only an hour. We were in for $10, out for $31.24, giving us a profit of $21.24, giving us an hourly profit of $21.24 per hour, which is more than minimum wage. Heck yeah! I can't wait for live poker to come back. Folks, I cannot wait for live poker to come back. I'm so excited to show you that kind of content. We'll be playing 1-2, 1-3, And I think that content's going to be so exciting, so much fun, and I'm so excited to show that all to you. But for now, as we are grinding through this pandemic, you're just going to have to stick through with all of this content. So thank you for sticking through with me. All right, folks, that wraps up this episode of Greg Goes All In. If you haven't already, please subscribe, please comment, please like, please hit the notification bell. It really helps the channel grow. Until next time, I'm Greg from Greg Goes All In. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Greg has a new bit, he's such a joker, wondering what it is. He's playing poker, check out all these bets and bluffs that he's called in. Welcome to Greg